Hello there. As you know that we have been talking about different story formats. In this particular episode, we are talking about Dan Harmon's story circle, which is also known as plot embryo or the story embryo, where we have been talking about Black Snyder beat sheet. Then we talked about Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. Then we talked about Christopher Vogler's The 12 Stages of Hero's Journey. And in this especially, we were talking about 8 different stages of Dan Harmon's story circle, where we talked about you, need, go, search, find, take, return, and change, which are the different stages of Dan Harmon's story circle. This is how the Dan Harmon story circles look like, where you have stage 1 where you are talking about the comfortable zone, then you have the desire, they desire something. So all these things that we have been talking about. U is basically the crucial step since it establishes the setup. Then I gave you an example of Toy Story Inception, how the setup part is being shown in that. We were talking about the need, and if you remember, I said one very specific thing. If you are the protagonist of the story, then need is the plot element. I'll be breaking down plot in coming lectures, but remember this line because this will solve a riddle of complex ideas in the world of screenplay writing, that if you are the protagonist, then need is the plot. The protagonist ultimately, the protagonist's ultimate motivation is revealed here, setting the stage for the rest of the narrative. Now, again, how this stage of need is established in these 3 different films. Like if you talk about Toy Story, in Andy's life, there was only Woody. Now there is another character, the entry of another character, Buzz Lightyear. I remember kids going crazy for this film. So there is another character who is introduced, who is called Buzz Lightyear in the world of Woody's or Andy's home, where Woody gets, technically he gets jealous because now he is no more the favorite toy of Andy. Now this is very interesting to understand from the first stage where you are establishing the character, and then this stage which is called the need stage. From you to need, the status quo, which was at the beginning of the story, start shaking. So this is what exactly happens. Then if Cobb has been a contractor who has been stealing information from people's mind, now he gets Saito. He gets a mission from Saito, and Cobb accepts Saito's mission. And if he accepts this Saito's mission, he will be able to go back to his family in the United States. So whatever the status quo was in Toy Story, or for that matter Inception, that there is a contractor who steals information from subconscious mind, now you get to know about that individual person, that he also has got a backstory. That is the motivation that he wants to work this specific assignment, which is obviously going to be very, very challenging for him, and he should not have done something like this in his entire or in her entire career. So the challenge has to be unique. So Saito offers that specific challenge for the Star Wars. So if you remember that Luke was living in his uncle's farm in a comfortable life, only thing was that he wanted to, he was longing to go out. But here, from U stage, when you move to the need stage, while R2D2 delivers Princess Leia's message. So look, suppose you are if I am in this studio, I am like comfortable. How can I be disturbed in this specific situation? Either internally I get disturbance, or I get disturbance from outside of the frame. So there has to be something. If I'm very comfortable in my own world where I am only longing to go out, either I leave my place, which is like internal motivation, and I go out, which also happens in the story, or suddenly there is some sort of a catalyst, or there is some sort of a provocation from the external environment in my world, and that provocation helps me to to go out from this comfortable world that I live in. So in the same way, Princess Leia's message comes. Obi-Wan approaches Luke and asks him to help. So this is from go stage to need stage. So this is basically the difference. Now the third, now the third stage is, so the first stage was you, then the second stage was need, and the third stage is a go stage. Now you enter in an unfamiliar situation. Now unfamiliar here, it means that whatever world that you are existing, now you have left that, crossing the threshold, and now you have moved absolutely and entirely into a new world. So this go stage is basically that sort of a stage. And please remember, this is this specific stage from where actually the protagonist enters into the dark world, or the dark phase, or the more struggle phase of his or her life. So 1, 2 was like, fine, you exist, there is a need, you find that need, but when you leave your setup and you get into the new setup, like suppose if, as I was giving an example of the Kohinoor, so like suppose if I'm I'm not a professor of history. Suppose I'm a professor of history and I'm doing all the research, there is an urgent need, I'm able to assemble my entire team, we understand, we establish the need why we should bring Kohinoor back in India. So this go stage will be when I leave from India to UK. So there is where the all adventure starts, where that is where the UK geography becomes an unfamiliar situation for me. So when we have a need, we take action. That is a logical extension. That when there is a need, there is a logical extension. The go stage denotes the hero's initial crossing of the threshold that I was talking about to satisfy the need. Reason enough to constantly hear, we need an active protagonist. Now when you are on go, obviously you are active protagonist. If there is a need but not go, the narrative is over. Like suppose if I say, fine, we should bring back Kohinoor, this is what we should do, this is what we should plan, and if we do not put that thing in action, I don't know how a story will move. There are ways, there is no doubt about it. Even you can move in that direction also, or maybe you weave your story in such a way that leaving for London happens after 2 hours, and you are able to engage your audience for 2 hours, and now they eagerly wait. Okay, let's see what will happen when they move there. What sort of a story they are going to weave. So we need an active protagonist. If there is a need but no go, the narrative is over. Make your demand so pressing in your storyline that skipping the demand would be unthinkable. When the protagonist reaches this stage, they have officially entered the second part of the story circle, leaving the regular life behind and stepping into unknown, darker world. Now, again, how this happens in these 3 different films. In Toy Story, when Woody throws Buzz out of window, the other toys eventually turn against him, and he takes Woody out to Pizza Planet. Now this is something where they actually enter in a very different sort of a world. Now what happens in Inception, Cobb recruits a new architect, forger and a chemist to form a team for Saito's mission. Now earlier there was a mission commissioned. Obviously it's a difficult job to do, so he need more people. This is how other people with their advantages and disadvantages come in the narrative world. Then what happens in Star Wars, after Luke comes home to discover after Luke comes home, he discovers that his aunt and uncle are dead. He and Obi-Wan sets off for Eldraine. Now this is what exactly happens. So now your character is all these 3 characters, be that Woody, be that the other new toy that has come, be that Andy, be that Cobb, be that Luke, or be that their uncle and aunt. one stage is over and you have entered into a completely unknown world. You are not sure what's going to happen there. Now, the fourth stage, which is basically search stage, you adapt to the situation. The complexity of the situation grows with each new search. The interest is aroused by how narrative and direction, story and the method are synthesized. The quest for an answer is one way the protagonist can meet the requirement. This is only sometimes taken so literally as suggested. Keeping it straightforward and engaging is what matters the most. It is more psychological than physical in nature, and one after another, it is when the rubber hits the road. Now, this is, all that training, entering the mentor, preparing for an unknown journey, learning one move 10 times, all these things has happened. Now, when you start searching for things, you actually meet, for the first time, you actually meet the real potential opponent of yourself in market. And this is where, that's why this expression where rubber hits the road, So here is where you have the entry of Bhallal Dev. So that sort of a thing is happening. Now, what happens in all these three films that I was talking about? In Toy, Woody eventually locates Buzz the lightsaber, but they are stranded at Sid's house. So you face the antagonist for the first time. You face maybe the worthy opponent, maybe you face the rightful opponent, but here is where, you take the first shot of surprise. It is something like how should I give you an example? Very, very interesting example. Suppose if it is a detective film, like say Sherlock Holmes, something very interesting, till this point, your character is like street smart. He is able to beat, he is able to solve, he is able to impress you. But at this point of time, the writing surprises you. For the first time, this spy, this basically person gets one tight slap, not literally, but story wise. So Woody eventually locates Buzz Lightyear, but they are stranded at Sid's house. Then if you talk about Inception, after Saito is shot, this who has given the assignment is shot, and Cobb's crew is ambushed. They must go through with this mission. Now, whatever good was going on, for the first time, you get, oh my God, what is happening? How now they will do it? So that sort of a stage is the search stage. Then Star Wars, basically the planet Eldron falls victim to the Death Star destructive mission, and the Millennium Falcon gets caught. So this is how it has been. Now let's talk about stage number 5, which is basically about find. The difference that I was talking about, get what they desire. Now this is something. Look, if you are an action hero, suppose if it is an action hero film, what is that you want? What is that you desire? Obviously you want to capture the antagonist. So you capture the antagonist, you beat or kill whatever you think is right, you do that. Ideally, your story should end here. The journey till this point was only about search, and at this stage, the protagonist is able to discover the driving force for the journey, the need. But does this mean that the plot has concluded? The answer is no. For many, the answer is yes. But for the master of the craft, the answer is no. There is where the difference is. This brings the difference in storytelling style. What sort of a style you are going to opt for? So, if your protagonist is getting what he wants, that's a logical end of the story. But it says no, that is not the logical end of the story. Like suppose, if I give you an example, Batman, The Dark Knight. Batman is able to get Joker. The purpose of the purpose of the protagonist is to get the antagonist. The purpose of the hero is to get the villain, capture, beat, kill, your choice. It depends on the story, what mood you have set for the story. But this is that I was looking for this antagonist, I was looking for this villain, I got him, I kill him, I beat him, irrespective. But that is like most of our films ends here. You're able to catch hold of the main person that you're looking for. Story should end. But for the simple reason that the hero of the great story never gets what he wants. So you may have caught your antagonist physically, but maybe he or she has got a different plan altogether. Maybe it was the part of his or her plan to get caught. It was her plan to get caught. Ideally, that should then either you run away from there, or either you do something that you set up a entire plan to get yourself released. So whatever it is, the protagonist thought he or she would deserve what he or she was looking for, but it turns out that he or she still wants more, and not what he has got or she has got. It needs to be more substantial. It needs to be bigger. This is where the story's plot and the character's arc meet. Now let's see how this happens. These are words like where the story's plot and the character's arc meet. So how it happens in these films, Woody and Buzz discuss what makes it so awesome to be a toy while planning their escape from Sid's residence. So here is where the plot and the character arc, because if they are working together, they are reaching to from where they started from hate. Now they are reaching to at least reaching to a point where they really want to get associated and work together to get out from Sid's residence. In Inception, what happens as Robert is killed, Cobb targets Fisher to aid him in penetrating his own mind. Now what happens in Star Wars, Luke and Han they free Prince Leia from the prison area of Death Star while preparing for their escape. Then how it happens, the sixth, let's talk about this stage only. Now this is a very critical stage as far as writing is concerned, as far as filmmaking is concerned, that you basically what you have been desiring, you get it, but then you also simultaneously has to establish the fact that what you have got is not exactly what you should get as per the caliber of the story. Now you have been developing the mind of the audience that this is what he has been looking for, this is what he has been aspiring for, this is what that he has worked for. But once you give him or her this particular thing, suppose you were, suppose if it is a short story and you have been present, the story is that how the employee of in a corporate office has been preparing for a meeting. And he has been working hard, people are not helping him, rather they are targeting him or her. Somehow he is able to manage to deliver a very good presentation. But during the presentation, as he is achieving the appreciation, as he himself is thinking, okay, yes, I have done a good job. But at the same time, you are injecting a feeling of emptiness, or maybe a sense of not exactly dissatisfaction, but a sense of realization that this is not what I want. I do not want the appreciation of these people. Okay, I got it. That is a different thing. That is a good thing. Rather, it's not a bad feeling either. That I have got the appreciation. I have got what I was looking for. But is it all about? Is there something beyond it? maybe for the first time, technically from the writing perspective, this is exactly the point where you not only convince your character, you also convince your audience that this specific hero or this specific character or this specific protagonist is just not meant for this small thing. So this another target that you are setting has to be higher than whatever you were bringing your audience up till this point as in terms of expectation. So if your character is here, if the need has been this, if he is getting this, then the next what you are able to establish has to be from here to here. This is also a crucial point where majority of the film loses that script. So this has to be like, suppose, yes, Batman, the Dark Knight, he wants to capture Joker, he beats him, all that thing, but he has set up another ambush where Harvey and his girlfriend is at two different locations, where he asks who is where, he gives him wrong information, he is able to save Harvey, Two-Face, but he is not able to save Rachel. Whereas he has more interest in Rachel as compared to Harvey. So capturing this is what, okay, the entire film is going how Batman is going to capture Joker. Fine, he does that in the at a round after 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes. But what is next for half an hour? That makes interesting, and there are a lot of people who have either excelled from this point onwards or have completely, they have made a blunder at this specific time. Now let's talk about how take works. Whatever you are doing, you are paying a heavy price. So when he goes to save Rachel, but instead of Rachel he saves Harvey, he loses Rachel at another point. So it doesn't matter what you were looking for, you get it, but you pay a heavy price of winning at this specific point. So it is a part where the protagonist goes through a crisis and is ready to give it all and take it all in the given situation. This could be what Campbell refers to as the magic flight in the story circle. The hero may have been able to get what they needed, but it has a price. The protagonist endured tremendous setback despite their early triumph. Depending on the context, these losses might range from minor inconvenience to the permanent damage or maybe the death of a major character. In most of the Japanese film, here is where the mentor dies. So let's see how it happens in how this specific stage is being shown in these three different films. The battery of RC dies as Woody and Buzz try to return to the moving truck. In Inception, after taking a chance on entering limbo with Ariadne to save Fisher and Saito, Kopf finally forgives himself for the role of Mara's death. Now, Star Wars, what happens? Obi-Wan sacrifices himself during their escape from Death Star. Now, the second last stage in the list is return to their familiar situation. It is the initiation of the climax and the beginning of the self-realization. Now, this is something very interesting. It is the initiation of the climax and the beginning of the self-realization. The character has evolved and brings the understanding or other acquired items to their own world, but that be that a magical item or a person or a lesson, and as a result they change. Now, how it is being shown in the films, in Toy Story, both Woody and Buzz have returned to Andy safely. Obviously, now they are friends. Inception, after successfully completing their task, Cobb and Saito emerge from the void and awaken abroad on the plane. And Star Wars, what happens? The Death Star is destroyed after an attack by the Rebel Alliance led by Luke Skywalker. Now the last stage, which is called the change, they have changed completely. It says, now what does it mean that they have changed completely? It could be a shift in their character or external environment, or maybe both. Now this is something that I extensively talked about when I talked about when I talked about all the stages which come after climax. It could be a shift in their character or external environment, or both. The world has improved, but perhaps the protagonist has worsened. This is like a very, very interesting point, that maybe the world has improved the way the protagonist has saved, but perhaps the protagonist has worsened. Maybe he has gone more, he's rather more damaged now. He's more damaged. So what happens, how it is being shown throughout these films, Woody figures out how to get along with Buzz, which is a happy ending because it's a children's film, it's animation. And then you have Inception, where after releasing his remorse, Cobb goes home to his kids, though ambiguous. So it is not settled whether it is again the imaginary world, or whether he's again in his own thought, or the Star Wars, the young Luke has developed into a skilled rebel pilot. So maybe the world has changed because of the contribution of the protagonist, but at times, like in Inception, maybe the situation has worsened. I hope these points help you when you write your own story, and you really write well. Thank you. Bye.